everybody, welcome back to Modern Randy. I am Randy. As always, guys, if you like what you're seeing, like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment about any kind of questions, concerns, anything you might have, or anything you might want me to showcase off, and go ahead and subscribe if that's something you guys want to do to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Today, we're going to be talking about the blue-black mid-range deck, Dimir Midrange, blue-black Murtide, whatever you want to call it, essentially. The deck that is basically taken over what blue-red Murtide used to be. This deck has kind of taken over that spot in the format and has come up as like the premier Murtide deck, essentially, as it stands up right now. Obviously, things could change. The lists are ever constantly changing. I don't think there's been a confirmed 75 given the fact that people want to play Psychic Frog, Bowmaster, Murtide Regent, and then good blue spells. So outside of that, nothing has been confirmed on how to build this deck, what to do, what not do, what cards to play, what cards not to play. So going over this list here as a whole, it is playing it's playing Tamiyo, the new flip planeswalker here. This is a one of. We're not getting any kind of like the wizard's value here with this deck, but it is a good one-drop spell. And then of course we're playing 4 Psychic Frogs. This card has been a powerhouse every time I see it get cast. It almost always looks good. So it is a blue and a black for a 1/2 frog. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you get to draw a card. You can discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then exile 3 cards from your graveyard to give it flying till end turn, so it gets evasion to help get that damage in. You get to discard redundant spells or things like Deep Analysis that lets you flash them back for cheaper cost, as well as just pitching cards that aren't good at the time depending on what deck you're up against, things like that, and just can be a miniature powerhouse by itself and take over the game. Playing 4 Bowmasters, I don't need to explain why this card's good. People are drawing cards, the rings around, things like that. You gotta play Bowmasters. We're playing 2 Subtlety here to help against big mana decks, problematic creatures, planeswalkers, anything like that. And of course we're playing the full 4 Murtide Regents here because we plan to be putting a lot of cards into our graveyard, and we want to be casting the dragon and killing people fast. Onto the removal this deck is playing. It's running 4 Fatal Pushes because Fatal Push is a great card, 1 Dismember, and then 1 Sink into Super is what I'm calling a removal spell, or just kind of a way to answer things like that. It is one of the new flip cards with the land on the back, so it is 3 mana instant, 2 blue, and a generic. You can return target spell or non-land permanent opponent controls to its art hand. Notably, it's acting like a remand essentially. And then on the back, you can pay 3 life and have a island basically come into play untapped. We're also playing 1 Drown in the Lock here as doing double duty as either a counter spell or a removal spell. We have 3 spell snares. Because Spell Snare has been a great card. There's a bunch of 2 mana value creatures, planeswalkers, all that fun jazz running around. Great way to just be ahead on mana against your opponent. 3 Spell Pierces makes sense. There's a lot of things running around. So a lot of spells running around. Spell Pierces is great for that. It's great against like the Court of Calling decks, Nadi, and stuff like that, making them have to think about what they're doing. It's great against the Jeskai control deck, being able to answer a lot of their spells because they usually are tapping out to cast most of them. Things like that makes sense. 1 Force Negation for just the catch-all, basically. 4 counter spells, because why wouldn't you? And then we're running the 3 Considerers, 4 Preordained as kind of our card selection and way to get through our deck, find the spells we're looking for. And then we're playing 1 Deep Analysis. Card got printed in MH3 to bring into the format, essentially. It is 4 mana sorcery, draw 2 cards. I know what you're thinking, that sounds horrendous, why would I play that? Because the flashback is only 1 in a blue and you pay 3 life to do it. And it goes well with our Psychic Frog here. Being able to get our Psychic, being able to discard it, put a counter on our Psychic Frog, pay a cheaper cost now to draw 2 cards. Good little spell. And then this deck is running 1 Sorin's Ransom. This is not stock in all the lists. I've seen some lists run it, I've seen some lists not. Just kind of something to play around with, essentially. It's an okay card. I'm not sure if this is something I would want. I think I would just rather run 2 Deep Analysis, but that's me personally. That being said, like I said, this deck has not been figured out by any stretch of the imagination. There has been a bunch of different iterations I've seen. like I said, basically the only thing that has been consistent with every deck I see is they're playing Murktide Regent, they're playing Orcus Bowmaster, they're playing Psychic Frog, and they're playing counter spells and draw spells. But the numbers are not figured out by any means. I think 4 counter spells is probably another thing I've seen that's, consistent, like 4 Fatal Pushes, because good cards are good, You're going to play them. That being said, though, I think Psychic Frog is an amazing card, amazing addition to the modern format. It's been really fun to watch. It's been really fun to cast. And it's just the deck makes sense. I know it's been putting up a lot of numbers. You can't really run a league or go into a league without running into this deck at least once, maybe twice. It's a fan favorite for sure. Like I said, it's a new Murktide deck, so everyone kind of wants to play it. It definitely rewards people who understand when they should counterspell, when they shouldn't, things like that. It's just like how Blue-Red Murktide was, but obviously different. We're playing way more 2-drop spells than we were with original Blue-Red Murktide and things of that nature. Is it Murktide? But I do think Dimir has kind of put his foot in the door and notated that it's going to be better than Is It Murktide. It's going to be the premier Murktide deck of the format, at least as it stands right now and moving forward. Things could change. Maybe Ragavan suddenly gets good again because Bowmaster gets banned. But outside of that happening, I don't think Ragavan is going to have his day in the sun anytime soon. Moving on to the sideboard here. Again, this is always subject to change, but this is pretty consistent from what I'm seeing, at least with the Break the Ice and the Consign to Memory. This deck struggles hard against the aggro, or the Eldrazi decks, whether it be aggro or the big mana decks. So it makes sense that you would have, Consign to Memory to counter those color spells and to be able to destroy those lands. We have 2 Nile Spell Bombs here, obviously just for the graveyard decks, as well as for Flage, because that's an annoying card to continuously have to answer. We have 2 Toxic Deluge, a new card put into Modern Horizon. Well, not a new card, but a new card into Modern. Being able to board wipe and deal with problematic board states all the way. Just great little answer there. And then we also are playing another Spell Snare for those decks. Same thing with Stern Scolding. There we go. For like the Grief decks, things like that. Another Force Negation here for the just for problematic spell decks, things of that nature, and then 1 Subtlety just kind of as a roundabout and catch-all. Helps with like the Prime Titan decks, things like that. Makes sense on the sideboard as a whole. Kind of just waxing and waning what counter spells and things you need to bring in outside of the Break the Ice and Consign to Memory. This deck isn't terrible against most of the field. I think it does have a little bit of a poorer edge against the Boros energy deck. Obviously you can take over the game, but you can also lose the battlefield really early, and you need to wait to come back to that. Hence why we have the Toxic Deluge here for that deck, is my guess. Probably that deck alone is the main reason why you have Toxic Deluge. That and the aggro Eldrazi deck, because they land a counter souls, all your counter spells just kind of look really bad. And they do pitch nicely to Psychic Frog, which is kind of one of the best things about this deck, and why we can afford to play so many counter spells and conditional counter spells. Why we can afford to play 3 Spell Pierces, 3 Spell Snares in the main, because worst case scenario, they're just a 1/1 counter on our Psychic Frog. But this is a deck that, like I said, has been popping up all over the place. You can't go into a league without running into this deck at least once, maybe twice. It's just been all over the place. Super fun deck to play. A great deck if you liked Is It Murktide, you're gonna like this Dimir Murtide for sure. Basically the same deck, just a little bit different. You're playing a little bit different game plan, where Psychic Frog is a lot better, I think, than what we had originally with either Darcy or with Ragavan. It's just kind of a hard to answer spell that also gives you just great card advantage by being able to draw a card practically at return. And it lets us pitch away all our bad spells, which fuels our graveyard then for the Murktide Regent. Just kind of like a little 2-card combo, essentially. And then Bowmaster is a great card right now in the format. Everybody's drawing cards, everybody's doing something like that. Bowmaster just says that I'm going to punish you for drawing cards. And it's great. But if you guys like what you're seeing, like what I'm doing, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything, and I will see you guys next time.